So you just said that you didn't feel like Feed Them Death is really death metal.
Mhm.
What genre would you put it under? You actually on your Bandcamp you call it negative post grind for anti positivist thinkers. So so what is this exactly? Welcome to the 64th episode of the Cast Ends Creation. I'm your host, Chris Deering. This is a show where I interview bands and public figures from the mathcore and mathcore adjacent communities. If you beautiful people and chat have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them and I'll try to read them aloud. If you'd like to sub for $5, you get access to some exclusive emotes as well as access to the interviews before they hit YouTube and streaming services. You can also sub for free by attaching an Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account. It's like taking $5 from Jeff Bezos' pocket and putting it into mine. If you're watching this on YouTube or listening to this in your car and have no idea what I'm talking about, the show is first recorded live on Twitch. Join us every Sunday and Wednesday at twitch.tv/thecastenscreation for the live cast. With that out of the way, let me introduce our guest tonight who dropped their new album, Negative, back in March through Brucia Records. Welcome in Void from Feed Them Death. How's it going, man?
Hey guys, hey Chris, how's it going?
I'm doing pretty good, man. How are you doing?
Yeah, all good, man, all good. Very happy to be here with you. Awesome show. Very happy to be part of it. So thanks
Well,
again for having
I'm
me.
glad you're on. So, how do you feed someone death? It's a very strange name.
Yeah, well, actually, it's not. It's strange in a world of metal in a way, because actually, like, I borrowed from punk rock vocabulary for that. Actually, Freedom Death derives from a Bad Religion lyric.
Oh, okay. See, I thought that it was probably a reference to something else, but I couldn't figure out what it was.
Well, it
Uh,
means like a lot of things. I'm vegan to start with, so that has that meaning potentially. I definitely think that from a geopolitical standpoint, like we have been feeding, force feeding actually, like death for as long as I can remember, to the point of being desensitized about things.
So it's more of a
Uh,
metaphor, not like actually like feeding someone like I don't know, dead humans or something.
Yeah, correct. It's more a metaphor, and I think that I like the fact that it was referred to like a generic them, rather than feed you death or feed me death or something. It was like more about like feed them death. It's like kind of links back to a sense of community and commonality with among people. And but yeah, like definitely comes from a Bad Religion lyrics. Bad Religion. I know it sounds like a little bit weird if somebody has listened to the shit I do, because it's very noisy stuff. But I
Not
have like
exactly punk rock.
correct. But I come from that background. Like I think the Bad Religion have they have been like one of my first loves, and to this day they may be one of my favorite bands, and I'm very prejudiced towards them. I think that they are fantastic, and even their shitty songs, I think that they are like way better than those of most bands. So
Alrighty. Uh, so you started your Facebook page in September 2017. I assume that's when
mhm.
you started making music for this project.
um, yeah, that was when I started making music for Freedom Death. Also, I was on a hiatus from social media for about 10 years. I mean, my history goes back a long while. Like I started making music. I mean, I picked up an instrument the first time, it was 1993, but I started recording music with different projects since about 97, 98. And I
You were
recorded
one
about
of the founding members for oh my god, Anthropophagus.
Anthropophagus. Yeah, correct. Correct. It was a blast back then, to be honest. Like, was having the time of my life. I was like 16, 17. Like I had like a recording studio paid by the label for 1 week
Nice.
with well, things were very different back then, because like, there weren't as many there weren't as many bands around, or maybe there were like, as many bands, but I think that it was before the, gonna say
Before like
the
social media and stuff took over.
yeah, before the big digitalization of everything, right? So like it was hard for a band to get access to funds to record an album because it would cost like a fucking fortune. We're talking about like thousands.
Right.
So traditionally, back in the days, the label would have just paid for everything, and but at the same time, they would have, they would hold the rights to your music. So essentially, you would, that was a kick, right? Like I was 17, I didn't care much. Like I was getting paid, like, to go around and tour and stuff. I was living like, the dream. But then when it came to like, the rights to my music, then, it took me for me to be a little bit older to understand like the consequences of that, right?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it was great, like, so yeah, I started recording music. But sorry, I'm just jumping from
You're
one thing
good. You're good, man. You're good.
Um,
You've also
and yeah,
done a
so
couple of other projects. Rising Bear Flotilla. What the heck is
yeah,
that name? I don't understand.
yeah, I actually don't know. Like that's it's really weird. Like, that was like a weird project. I unfortunately I need to go back again to Anthropophagus. So with Anthropophagus, we did two albums. First one is still like regarded in Italy as like, a kind of milestone of brutal death metal kind of made in Italy. And for whatever reason, I think it's a very good album and stood like the test of time well. And I think that, the good thing about the album was the fact that it wasn't like, we weren't professional, and also our sound engineer was, didn't have a clue how to fucking mix death metal back then, like, and
Right.
It was amazing. So like all the flaws of that album are what actually makes it so special, I think, kind of. Anyway, so after that, like a lot of like changes of lineup and stuff, and then I ended up like, closing the project and just like, and I actually had an accident, very bad, and I kind of lost the use of my arm for 5-6 years. And so I had to like, go back into rehabilitation and do like, things, exercises and stuff.
What happened?
Just like a motorbike accident.
A bike accident? Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't as bad actually. Like what happened is that unfortunately they fucked up the operation, so they touched my radial nerve, and I couldn't move my finger for a number of years. So I had to like, do rehab and stuff. So I kind of like had to put like all music things like, somewhere far away from me, because it was like so much suffering knowing that, I couldn't do that, like after literally leaving for that, right?
God, that sucks.
Yeah, that was horrible. Anyway, so after a number of years, eventually, like I got back in touch with another founding member of Anthropophagus, and we found like old demos of like a kind of a weird direction that we were taking with the third album that we never recorded. And so they were like a lot more experimental, also like kind of electronic music kind of thing. A lot of drone and like, some other stuff. And so like we started like basically re-editing that thing, but we didn't want to use our own name. And so we came up with this other thing, which is bonkers name for a project. But,
Isn't a flotilla like a boat or something?
Yeah, well, it was like a very weird thing. Like also lyrics, we didn't really have lyrics essentially. Like, we kind of recorded things like, very instinctively, like, kind of first shot, first kill kind of thing. Like, we just didn't have lyrics. We just improvised a lot during the recording of that. So
I can't even find like recordings of it on YouTube or anything like that.
Yeah, we didn't put it on YouTube. It's weird. Like we pressed 500 double 12 inches. And they're kind of gone. Like I have like a few left at home. Then the idea was like to put it on Bandcamp and stuff, but then we didn't do it. And I got lazy. I started off like, doing these other projects. Started off with the label, and it's fine. We don't have like any more to shift. So I guess that we were alleviated by that kind of pressure to to put our music out there, kind of thing.
You're also involved in a Boone put out an EP with them. It's just you and somebody else, right? Is this two man project?
Yeah. It was like a guy. He's actually like a great guy. Like he is the owner of Webzine. Like he's been in the underground scene, like with various different bands for a number of years. And our friendship goes back like a number of years, and we decided to kind of try to do something together. And again, like, it's something that I kind of parked at the moment because I'm genuinely busy with a lot of other things, and he's kind of writing a book and stuff. So we've always said that was a project where we do things like, only when we got something to say. So
Right.
like, without any kind of pressure of like, and in fact, we actually done only a couple of songs. So.
Okay. So now back to Feed Them Death. So
Yeah.
you started in 2017, and it's just been you the entire time, right?
Yeah. So that's also kind of interesting because when I started, the idea was to like, for it to be like a proper band. So I was here in London, and I kind of started working with, bouncing ideas off with other people, and start like kind of rehearsing and stuff. And to be honest, like the weird things is that I was born a bass player. So I've been playing bass guitar for like about 30 years now. So that's like my main instrument. And actually, like, I basically learned to play guitar because of Feed Them Death. So I've only been playing guitar for 4 years essentially.
Okay. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
some of the technique kind of transfers over to guitar, right? From bass.
Yeah. I mean, compositionally, I know how to go about things and stuff, and I think that the idea for me is always, I never really enjoyed playing guitar, so it's never really something that I've I felt any urge to explore further or something. But because like I realize that it can be like a little bit complicated to deal with. Musically speaking, because I tend not to get on with a lot of other people when it comes to like creating music together. And I got, I tried to start like this project with other people, but, I think that the level of commitment and like vision about the overall things was different. And then at some point I was like, you know what, fuck it. Like, I'm just going to do it by myself. So
that's
like,
how a lot of one man bands are. Like they're not good at working with other people. I'm one of them. I have my own project, The Sound That Ends Creation, and yeah, I just don't want to rely on other people to try to get like my vision out. You know what I mean? So I feel like a lot of people are like that.
Yeah, I mean, then it's weird because like it's something that I had to learn again, like, to trust other people and collaborate with other people, which is like, essentially what's happening now with the label. Like, the label is not mine. It's like it's like a collaboration with another guy, and also like I've started collaborating with other projects with other people. But I think that for me, like, to feel that Feed Them That is always going to be like my main kind of
creative outlet.
Yeah, like my drawing board, like it's where I actually put everything about myself, and I would feel kind of uncomfortable having to share this one with. That being said, I actually collaborated within Feed Them That with a lot of people. So, and the way I ask people to collaborate with me, it's usually they have like complete freedom of doing whatever the fuck they want. Like I don't I really cherry pick like the people I want to work with and invite within the project. But once they're in, they can just do whatever they want. Like with many people, I just said like just do stuff, just send it to me, like and I don't even want to listen to them. Like I completely blindfoldedly trust you, implicitly trust you, and this is gonna go on record, and I don't and I'm fine with that.
So you don't even listen to it before you release it? Is that what you're saying?
I don't change it. Like, if I don't particularly like, yeah, but to me, it was like, if you want, just send it to me, like, and I won't ask you to change. I don't want to give like, strict perimeters around, like, just do, just deal with it like the way you feel. And so, I'm protective. It's weird. Like, I'm very protective towards Feed Them That on one end, but at the other, the other end of the spectrum, actually very permissive with people collaborating with me.
Right. Lucia X Makip in chat is saying that's awesome. It shows in the album that freedom, and it turned out amazing.
Aww.
And yeah, you did have a couple of guests on here. According to your Bandcamp, David Distro did some noise. Is that how you say his name?
David Destro. Yeah. I mean Destro. Yeah. He's an Italian guy. Actually, he plays in this band, supporting the team.
What is it?
Yeah, La Colpa.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a kind of experimental drone noise bands, like but sludgy kind of thing, which we actually released on our label last year. Yeah, I mean, they've been around the shop for quite a number of years. They're really, really good, really, really spooky music, immensely heavy. Like, you know, they just like, you know, fucking mammoth kind of like, you know, sludge with like, you know, harsh noise and stuff. They're fantastic. And yeah, and so he collaborated with me on a few tracks, and also he collaborated with me on the previous EP and also on the previous LP as well.
Right. So Feed Them Death is more of like a collection of people with like you kind of directing stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that was the intention to begin with. So, like, you know, the first album, like, I had, like, you know, 3 guests on vocal, 3 or 4. I always tend to have, like, you know, people collaborate. And on the second LP, I had, like, somebody playing theremin.
You know, like wow, okay. Yeah. I didn't even know those still existed. That's crazy.
Yeah, there aren't actually many people playing it. Like, you know, this guy is absolutely insane. Like, you know, and again, that was the thing. Like, you know, just play on it. Like, you know, send me the tracks. This gonna go on record. Like, you know, I didn't do any editing. You know?
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, for people that don't know what a theremin is, it's that sound that's in like horror movies, like woo. So that's really crazy, man. I didn't know it was a thing.
Huh. Yeah. And or other people singing with me and stuff. So yeah, I always saw like, you know, this project as a kind of like, you know, collaborative approach, you know, like a collaborative thing with people I like, and rather than having like, you know, one fully formed band, is like more like having a lot of guests, like, you know, having the pleasure of having like guests over. Right. Yeah.
You also had Darehead.
Yeah, the Red. Yeah, so this is this is also like interesting. It's like, you know, all within Brucia Records actually, because the Red is like the kind of depressive black metal project of my label partner.
Okay. I saw that there was that y'all released something on the record label for him, but that's cool that it's his too. So y'all are musicians kind of collaborating in the label then.
Yes, correct. And actually, like, you know, the reason why we started off a label, like, you know, it was because, like, you know, we are musicians. We have been recording and releasing stuff on a number of different labels in the past. Never quite fully happy with the way, like, our things were, I don't know, treated or, like, marketed or whatever.
What do you mean exactly?
I don't know, like, you know, I think that as a musician, you always have like a high, you know, kind of high expectations. So now you would like certain labels to like, you know, treat your product. And it's becoming like, you know, increasing because the market is so oversaturated. You know, it is becoming like very much like production consumption kind of thing, like, you know, and like a lot of labels tend to treat like albums like, you know, what they are, products, right? And so, like, you know, you have it like on your release schedule, and then you do like a little bit of promo, and then
you drop it. It's on to the next thing.
Yeah, which is functional. Like, you know, don't get me wrong. Like, it's you know, it's fine. It's just like us as a musician, we wanted to kind of try to create like a different thing, and instead of thinking about albums as products, we wanted to like, you know, think of them as like works of art, right? So, and initiate like, you know, and approach our kind of working together with the band, not in terms of like, you know, we are the label and you are the artist, but like, you know, let's do this together. Let's collaborate towards creating something very unique.
So how do you is your way of promoting different from another label? Like, how do you treat them like art rather than products?
Well, it depends. Well, first off, like, I know, one thing is like we tend to design like, you know, the art cover and everything like ourselves. So we actually offer that service like included in our collaboration. So we don't ask any money. So, you know, the thing is like, you know, this is because it's something that comes like under our label, like, you know, we take pride in what we do. So we want to make sure that, you know, we are happy with doing what we do. So like, you know, we work from a graphic design standpoint, from like, you know, PR marketing standpoint. We do like a lot of like, you know, sometimes we actually work with bands to do like kind of ground up sort of things, like, you know, look also as, you know, kind of working as a producer along the way. So like, you know, giving like, you know, helping them with like final mix or like, you know, mastering, or just like, you know, even like, you know, track list, and like, you know, think about like, you know, how would you imagine like a producer to collaborate with a band, rather than just like, you know, nowadays like labels tend to be like, you know, okay, cool, your album is cool, send me the WAV files and I'm gonna like, you know, release it in 2 months, and kind of send me like, you know, the artwork as well, like, you know, that kind of thing, like, you know, so you give me the product, I just sell it.
Yeah.
Whereas for us, it's always been like more like, okay, so you've got like a good idea, and let's try to make it interesting for us as well. Like, you know, in a way, you know, we never really, you know, we don't do it for the money. Like, you know, we're very lucky because we're just breaking even at the moment, but we know, and we have like our own day job kind of thing. So it's not something that, you know, it's not a profession for us, but you know, because it's something that we do out of love. It's something that we want to make sure that we love what we do. And so like, you know, we take like great pride in everything that we do. And so like when it comes to collaborating with bands, it's like a, you know, 360 degrees collaboration.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are some of the releases you guys got coming out?
Well, we recently done something that actually turned out being pretty successful for being like a debut album. It was like the Sun and the Mirror. It's a duo from Everett, Washington. Yeah, and they do like a kind of heavy psych, like doom drone ambient stuff. It's a complete mindfuck, I'm telling you. Like, it's absolutely phenomenal. Like, I remember when I got the promo, I listened to that like, you know, 4 times in a row, and I was like, I can't fucking believe this thing is even real, like, you know. And so to me it was like a no-brainer. Like, I totally wanted it on the label and stuff.
So y'all don't do just like death metal and stuff. You do like just weird stuff is what y'all are going for.
Yeah. We essentially, I mean, actually, death metal, we don't have anything. Like, the only thing vaguely resembling death metal is my own project, so which is Feed Them Death. Like, otherwise, we tend to do, you know, yeah. For us, like, I think that it's important that it's like, you know, weird, but like experimental, like not forcedly weird, like, you know. But if there's like a level of experimentation and like some, you know. Yeah, I mean that's something that we value a lot, because we find that, you know, market being so oversaturated, we feel that again, I don't want to shit on other labels' job, but it feels like, you know, that there are like a lot of the same things being produced.
That's exactly true. Yeah. They seem to find what sells and then just like sell that over and over again.
Yeah, and I have like my personal huge dislikes, which I'm not going to mention because I don't want to offend anyone. But I see a lot of the same things being produced like by different labels, like, you know, on a daily basis. So what we wanted to do is like focus less on the type of music and a little bit more on like a overall similarity, yeah, and aesthetic and attitude, like, you know, kind of an attitude and towards curiosity and you know, towards like making something that is like, you know, abrasive but creative,
right?
You know,
new and different stuff.
Yeah. And anyway, you know, those guys, like, for being like a debut album, they did phenomenally well, and you know, to my surprise, to an extent, and actually that work was like really fulfilling for us, because like when they send us the demos, like, you know, the whole concept wasn't there, like, you know, and it's not their fault, like, you know, the thing was like they had like a lot of ideas, but we worked together to, you know, to kind of bring them to fruition, and it was like a collaborative thing, to like, you know, kind of review the I can say, like, you know, important things in the album, like, you know, making sure that we would just like, you know, give value to the great job they've done recording it and composing it. And so, like, you know, we completely redesigned the whole thing, and like, you know, redeveloped together with them like a concept to go with it, and like a communication line and everything. And it was very intense, but, you know, it's very gratifying, because then when you see that people like it, it feels, you know, it feels, I feel like I really worked with them, and I'm very proud of that, you know. So I think it's, yeah.
So you just said that you didn't feel like Feed Them Death is really death metal. What genre would you put it under? You actually, on your Bandcamp, you call it negative post grind for anti-positivist thinkers. So so what is this exactly?
Yeah, I mean, that's like, copywriting, great copywriting. No, I'm joking. No, I don't know. Like, I think that death metal, I don't know, it doesn't have the chugginess of it. And
You got
also,
a
like,
couple of riffs that are like kind of chuggy.
yeah, yeah. No, that's true. I don't know. I think that maybe the first album that I did with Feed Them Death was slightly more derivative and it was easier to pinpoint kind of thing. It was like more traditional death grind.
Mm-hmm.
Think about like, first Brutal Truth, Terrorizer, that kind of thing. Like it was easier to have like a reference, like a frame of reference for it.
Yeah, to
And then
pigeonhole it.
yeah, and then I eventually started like again experimenting a lot more. Again by putting theremin and harsh noise tracks on things and stuff like I think that I don't know. I feel it's still very ingrained in like kind of grindcore thing, but kind of death grind, not
Mm-hmm.
like crusty grind kind of thing. But yeah, but it's experimental in the sense that there's a lot of like again harsh noise, drone, and doom, sludge,
It
and
is
so
very experimental. You have like clean guitars on the first track. There's a 5.5 minute long noise track.
yeah,
There's clean singing on the last one. So
yeah.
yeah, I
Without,
guess it's just trying to like
with,
push it further and further, huh?
yeah, and the clean singer is without pitch shifter.
Oh,
I wish
okay.
I had, yeah, yeah. I wish I had like my sound engineer with me to like bear testimony to that, bear witness to that. He was very impressed. I was like, oh my god, I thought that you were shit doing this. And I was like, yeah, you see, man, like Um, yeah, and yeah, so yeah, there's a lot of different influences in a way, but I think that okay, so do you know why I'm not 100% sure about the death metal thing? Because I think that death metal, like and grind in general, everything that is fast, I find that it kind of lacks of depth a little bit, like depth as in drama, like
Mm.
kind of pa- pathos, like just something that is really like excruciating kind of thing, like, and
You
I
mean
feel that
like building it up and like releasing and stuff, or what do you mean exactly?
I think that sometimes when you like if you go down the route of like being really really fast, like sometimes you sacrifice like depth of expression, like
Gotcha.
you be
So like they're just fast the entire time, and there's no like
yeah,
real dynamics in the sound.
yeah, and it's not only dynamics, it's like drama per se, like
Mm.
that kind of like you can have like your guitars down tuned and everything, and like but really like when it comes to dissonance, I think the dissonances usually work best with like slow, like sludgy music kind of thing.
Mm.
And so I kind of always found that fast music wasn't as dramatic as I wanted, with few exceptions, of course. And so my thing was like to kind of try to like make fast music dramatic again.
Okay.
So make it like a little bit more kind of minor, just like not depressive, but like very suffocating in a way. Not just like plain brutal.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, you're definitely like achieving that goal with this.
Thank you.
So what are some of the influences that go into this? You were mentioning like earlier Terrorizer and stuff like that, but your current influences.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I listen to a lot of things, to be honest. I'm a very eccentric listener. Um, Also because like with the work I do with the label, like usually my like kind of black metal, extreme metal quota is reached like halfway through the day with all the submissions that we get, right? So
Right.
like, and then in the afternoon, in my spare time, I tend to listen to like a bunch of like weird shit. So it could be like ambient, like noise, like as in harsh noise. I listen to a lot of doom. I listen to a lot of hardcore punk,
Okay.
especially like kind of old stuff, like kind of early 80s kind of thing. So
Are there any
Void,
specific bands that like gave you inspiration on this?
well, Void, for example, like the DC band, Minor Threats, like first few like agnostic front, well, the early agnostic front kind of thing. um yeah, I mean,
What about for like the weirder parts of your music? Where are you getting that stuff from?
Well, actually, yeah. Well, first off, I think that so today when I was coming back up, I was listening to something that that I really, really like. So it's not like kind of something I discovered recently, something that I really, really admire, which is Brutal Truth. So Brutal Truth, they started off with something not derivative, because the first album that they did in 1992, they were like, 30 years ahead of their time, like in terms of production. So Extreme Condition demands extreme responses. It's an album that is phenomenal for being like 1992, like is unparalleled, like
Right.
even to today's standards. But what I really liked about them is the fact that they, I like bands that tend to regress rather than progress in a way, like in terms of quality of sound and like mugginess of everything. And like their second album was like, I remember when I got Need to Control, I was like, what the fuck is this? Because it was the first kind of grindy album that I got, like back in the days in '95. I got it. That was like, there were like harsh noise tracks. There were like kind of electronic music. It was like everything. There was like doomy, sludgy things in there, and it was like, oh my fucking god, what's this? So it took me ages to go back and like actually appreciate that. So I think I'm not the only one. Like there's a history in grindcore, death grindy thing of bands experimenting with like putting a lot of stuff together. And I think that maybe Brutal Truth have been like among the most successful example of like merging so many different type of music, of extreme music, into under one roof.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Discordance Axis are also like a band that they haven't been very they haven't had like a long history of releases, but they finished with like a fantastic release. And pretty much everything that they've done, it wasn't as experimental in terms of like putting together so many different type of music, but the approach was extremely progressive to grindcore.
Right.
And then Cephalic Carnage is another band that maybe playing more on a kind of death metal thing, but they compositionally they are a complete mindfuck. And I really like it because I think that from them, I really like the fact that they always seem to play like the notes that you don't expect, and
Okay.
and I really really like that, because that's also the way I started learning to play an instrument. Like I'm self-taught, and I started like kind of downloading like tabs. When internet wasn't even a thing, like there wasn't even like Google. I remember Google wasn't even there. Like I
Right.
was like using another like search engine, and so I
And the
got like some
computer like screams at you whenever it's coming up and stuff too. Dude, I remember
yeah,
that back in
yeah,
the day.
and
Took
it
you
was
forever to
like
load up a page.
yeah, it was hard. Like I didn't have like a laptop. I had to I had to go to the public library and book a slot of 30 minutes to like print like and anyway, so I started working with working on tabs from, I think it was Necroticism by Carcass. So which is like it's a very important album for me, because that's like the album that taught me how to play an instrument. And like in terms of like muscle memory and everything, that's completely like it's totally crazy, like because it's really if I say it's all minor, it seems like I actually know what the fuck I'm talking about, when in reality it's like all those notes are just like they always like pick the notes that you don't expect.
Hmm.
So it creates that sense of suspension and like that sense of like anticipation, like you don't know what's going to happen and kind of thing.
Right.
And it feels all very disharmonic, and I think that I try to incorporate a lot of that into what I do musically.
So what's your writing process like? How do you go from just an idea to making it a song?
Uh, well, it change like it depends. Like sometimes I wake up and I feel like I know what I don't know. Like I can hear like a something, like sometimes I start with like lyrics, sometimes I start with like a drum beat. It really depends. But I think that the beginning of the writing process is usually kind of instinctive. So it's something that I hear. It's like it as if I knew that it was already there, and I only had to like pick it up, kind of thing.
Hmm.
Like it's there in my brain somewhere, and I can hear it, and it's just like a case of like okay, well, I write it down, kind of thing.
So do you like improvise the riffs as you go along, or is it like very methodical and you like tab it out and everything?
Well, both actually. Like, I the improvisation part comes like at the beginning of the writing process, where I try to be as free as possible. The moment I hear something I like, then I pin it down. But then, like, so from this kind of bunch of like different ideas, then then it begins like the actual writing process, that is like that of like being a little bit more methodical, not about writing down your riff or like writing your music, but just thinking like spending a lot of time thinking about the composition and the effect that you want to convey. So like it's like instinctive in the sense of writing the individual riff, but then there's like a lot of conceptualization around like the actual arrangement of the track. Okay. So usually, when it comes to writing riff, it's pretty easy and straightforward. But then, like I spend like a lot of time like not polishing things up. Sometimes actually quite the opposite. Like
trying to make them sound worse, or what do you mean?
Yeah, like making them. Yeah, making them like dirtier, or like adding like a layer of noise there, or just like kind of try to reinterpret what I'd written. Yeah.
Okay. Well, how do you come up with the idea of like, hey, let's put clean guitar here, or let's sing on this one?
Actually, like the singing part was very instinctive, because like that riff was very doomy to me, and around that period I was listening to Cathedral a lot. So I was like, oh, like maybe, I mean, I'm not here to say that my vocal qualities are like anywhere near Lee Dorian, but I kind of felt like this would be interesting to have like something like still dissonant, but like add like layer of like especially like when I was thinking about like that being the last song of an album that is like very extreme with like harsh noise again and drony parts and stuff and fast, I was thinking like how disquieting would I be to actually hear like clean vocals on the last track, kind of thing. It's definitely something that you wouldn't expect, right?
Yeah, when I heard him I was like, wait, what the heck is happening?
Yeah.
Like, is that a guitar or something? But no.
Yeah.
It's your angelic pipes.
Yeah, correct. And and then like as also with the piano and stuff, like especially with the EP I did before this album, I actually recorded like the tail of a song is like harsh noise plus piano, and I can't really play the piano very well, but I recorded like the piano, and it was like about 3 minutes tail kind of thing. I didn't write it like I didn't write it down on a piece of paper kind of thing. I kind of went along a little bit knowing pretty much what I wanted to do, and I did very little editing, but I kind of thought that and I only down tune it like after having recorded it. So I took that piano sample kind of thing and then made it like a little bit darker. But yeah, it's I don't know, I just like different patterns and something that creates like a little bit more depth to
Do you go into a part thinking that you're gonna put something weird over it, like piano or whatever? Or is it just like, I don't know. Yeah. Do you think about putting weird parts on top of certain parts? You know what I mean? Like, did you think, oh, I'm gonna sing over this thing, or oh, I'm gonna put piano over this, or whatever?
It's like it's weird because being on my own, I don't know. I think I got a kind of split personality issue because I find myself talking to myself quite a lot. And so when I listen to the demos or what I do, I find myself like, listening and conversating with myself like, oh, that would be cool. Like if we did something like, how about this? But it's never like, really an attempt to be weird, It's more an attempt to kind of try to add drama to it. Like, what can I do to make it darker? Because I think that then you get to a point where like you especially when if you work on music that is fast, is like very saturated, like sounds are big and stuff, it's not always easy to add
right, everything can get muddy if you add too much.
Yeah, and like if you just add like another guitar track, like it's just gonna get lost or something. Like I remember the first album I recorded four or five guitar tracks, and now I'm just like I skimmed it down to like 2. Like certain parts there's only 1, so it's not even like in stereo. Like
That's a lot of guitar tracks, 4 or 5.
yeah, but that's like the way of the 90s. Like when you went in the studio and you had like, oh yeah, we need to do like 4 guitars track or something. And eventually, like now I feel like there are certain parts where there's only 1, or again, not even like sometimes it's just like, as you said, like clean guitar or like something. It really depends.
So your Bandcamp says the lyrics for this were inspired by Theodor Adorno, who's a German philosopher. How has he inspired you?
I think that there's been like a theme across like the 3 releases I've done with Freedom Death. So there was like a philosophical school like back in kind of 40s up to the 60s in Frankfurt in Germany, where kind of like philosophers started to challenge the notion of positivism, like as in like we are in a trajectory of like improvement in our society kind of thing. And their point was like, actually this is all going like haywire, like you guys know shit. And like and they were like especially against the commoditization of art. So for them, and especially like Adorno, like this guy, he was like a composer, so he was also a musician, so I actually used a little part of his composition in the previous album. And basically what he said, like, okay, so how to make it interesting and not sounding boring, but the whole thing is like, especially with Negative, like the idea was to make an album against the commoditization of underground music. So the point was like, maybe because of like my vantage point being like in a label or something, like I and also for the fact that I've been in the underground music scene for many years. This is not like nepotism; it's just like age. I'm nearing 40, so next week I'm 40 years old. So I kind of felt like that. I don't know, it's complicated for me to accept the fact that something that should be countercultural, like extreme music, becomes a commodity.
What do you mean by it becoming a commodity?
Like with again a lot of bands sounding all the same, and labels like feeding force feeding people, like dishing out always the same thing because it sells, kind of thing. And it becomes like selling a record rather than just expressing discontent or like being like a force of like negation kind of thing, or opposition, like and I feel like that I really missed like when extreme music was dangerous. Not dangerous as in like fucking black metal, like burning churches and all that kind of shit.
It's a little too dangerous.
Yeah. No, but dangerous like as in like something
that hasn't really been heard before, and like something that challenges the way you think about music.
Correct.
And stuff.
Insightful, and something that could actually like bring like different like I don't know, like a different perspective on things. Whereas instead it feels like that everyone is playing safe nowadays, right? And you can also see like with not everyone, but you can also see with like the plethora of like bands reuniting again, like like all these fucking reunion things, like all trying to like reunite to just go on tour and just pretend that they have something to say when they've got like nothing to tell, and they just like maybe most of the time it's just like find an excuse to like hit the road again and try to cash like whatever they couldn't cash back in the days, kind of thing. And I felt like it was very disingenuous, and I there was like I found like an interesting parallel with like what Adorno wrote about jazz music. So that was like the incipit, like about like he harshly criticized jazz music, basically saying the same thing they say about like extreme music nowadays. So the fact that it should be countercultural, but it's not, and it's allegedly like a kind of different and alternative, but in reality, like the way it achieves diversity is complying to the rules. So like, you know, we tend to think that, you know, avant-garde music as could be like, you know, jazz music or whatever. It's like, you know, it's made of like, you know, creativity and improvisation, whereas instead like there are like a specific set of rules. They're just different rules. And
Right.
so I was thinking like, you know, it's interesting that, you know, this seems to be like the case nowadays where like, you know, but, and then of course, like, you know, taking the thing outside of just the music realm, you know, I felt this kind of discomfort thinking about like, you know, the, I don't know, the fact that something that should be like, you know, again, countercultural, it's just been absorbed so much by the kind of production consumption paradigm that is just part of it nowadays. And I felt like, you know, I was like a little bit lost. So I think that, you know, yeah, that was like the, you know, the inception of the idea, and kind of like make make an album kind of against like the commoditization of extreme music.
Okay. And then
Makes sense.
where was it? Yeah, what's your recording process like? This said that this was recorded by David Tavachia at Untitled
Yeah,
Studio.
yeah, you won't like that. How you mean?
Is that
No,
not how you say it? How do you say it?
absolutely not, but that's fine. Uh,
He was like, nah, dude, you weren't even in the ballpark, man.
yeah, yeah, absolutely far. No, I'm joking. No,
how,
that's
how do
fine.
you say it?
Davide Tavecchia.
Okay, I'm not even gonna try it again. Him.
That's fine.
And
No
so
worries.
you recorded with him at Twilight Studio.
Yeah, he's been my sound engineer for a number of years, and he knows. You know, he's one of the few people I know. He understands exactly what I mean by like, you know, trying to be you know, to achieve like a bad sound that's you know, kind of bad sound that sounds good.
Hmm.
Like, you know, I think that, again, like the first album, like being a derivative in composition, but also like the sounds were like safe in a way, like very death metal. And you know, I increasingly asked him to like, you know, thrash that and like, you know, work with me on creating something a little bit more abrasive.
Okay.
And you
So
know,
you're
others are
deliberately trying to not make it sound like punchy or
pretty,
whatever.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's not like a simple things to achieve with like a sound engineer because they usually say, "What the fuck you talking about?" Like, you know, they because they're always trying to like, because it's also their job, right? So it's like, you know, they understand more about frequencies and stuff, like, you know, than me. Like, you know, I'm like the crazy person going there. It's like, can you just like make the snare sound shit kind of thing?
So why
And he
not just
goes like,
record it on your own if you're looking for like a sound that's not super clean to begin with?
sorry.
Why not just record it on your own if you're looking for a sound that's not clean to begin with?
Well, but I record most of the stuff on my own, and I make sure that my part of what I record is it, you know, like the starting point is not clean when it comes to like, you know, especially guitar and bass. So I make sure that, you know, the preset of my again, my setup when it comes to recording is it's not set to be super clean. But
Mm-hmm.
then, of course, like, you know, what I would like to achieve with him, like, you know, that's again part of what we're talking about, the collaboration aspects of things. Like, you know, I have ideas, and I have like maybe an orthodox view of like, you know, certain sounds that I would like to achieve. But then it's also important that I you know, that I come to terms with like, you know, with his expertise, and like, and he's trying to filter most of like my crazy requests into something that actually that ultimately makes sense for both kind of things.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah, so it's like you know, he's not my like slave, you know. We work collaboratively, and but usually our relationship is like, hey, can you make this one sound shit? And he goes like, okay. You know. uh
Alrighty. Oh, who mastered it? Did he master it as well?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Who did your
yeah.
artwork?
Oh, that's interesting. So this
I can't
is,
show it because I'm afraid Twitch is gonna like slap my wrist or whatever. But
yeah, yeah,
people can find it on like your Bandcamp, for instance, feedthemdeath.bandcamp.com.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, tell us where it comes
You
from.
know, yeah, it's amazing. Like, you know, if you were back in the 90s, I could have just put like a parental advisory sticker kind of thing. But it's not as gory. It's just like in Twitch being difficult. But
Mm.
yeah, so the artwork is so it wasn't made specifically for the release. it was made as part of like a larger photographic project by Sophie Gabrielle. She's a Australian photographer. She's done like a lot of amazing things, and I was like desperately looking for something iconic. So the idea was like, because my previous artwork were like very grindcore, like collage kind of thing, like a lot of elements and stuff. And also the titles were also very long, like, No Solution, Dissolution, or Panopticism, Belong, Be Lost, For a Culpable Dead. It was all very like a bit of a mouthful. I wanted to just come up with something very iconic and very simple, like, because I like the paradox of like, kind of mistreating like commoditization of art by trying to be iconic, like, but, kind of try to avoid that kind of layer of complexity and bring back to like, kind of try to be like a little bit more straightforward and direct. So I wanted like one image, like, I didn't want to have like a collage of like 3,000 different things. And anyway, when I stumbled upon that picture, I was like, fucking hell, this is amazing. And then I went and researched. And so I'm going to give you like a nice story of that. Like the photograph is actually been taken, well, the image has been photographed like a manifold of times, I don't know how many. And the negatives have been sunk in polluted water to allow microbes to just generate and eat at the negative itself.
Okay.
So
this image is from the microbes and stuff, or
yeah, okay. It's basically an image of a hand, like photographed like say 1,000 times, and then all the negatives have been sunk in polluted water, so that then like microbes could just like generate and start eating at the negative while being developed. So like it's a very weird process, but the image is like absolutely phenomenal. So of course, like digital physical format it makes more justice than digital. But if you get the chance like to get, this is like shameless self promotion, but like maybe more on vinyl than on CD. But it's like when you see it big, it's just fucking, it's mind blowing. So yeah,
it was like someone's actual hand then. Like up.
Yeah, I think that was like maybe part of like maybe she took like a photograph of like some like old, I don't know, medicine books, or I don't know, but she developed like that image in a way that was completely mind blowing, like kind of, and that kind of reminded me the way I treated my music for the release. So like taking something, working a lot on it, and like finding a way to make it sound worse in a way, like kind of allowing for errors and mistakes, and allowing for extra layers of things that usually like that traditionally you wouldn't do. And so I kind of found that was really, it was like an interesting take on photography. And so I reached out to her and say, hey, can I use it for the thing? So she was very kind to let us use it.
She also did this little lyric video thing for you, right? Or is this
no?
Oh, that's really loud. My bad. That's really loud. Okay, there we go.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The lyric video was a friend of mine did it. He's got he makes a lot of like lyric videos for like black and death metal bands. The name of like his thing is like a little bit unpronounceable, so I won't even try.
If even you can't pronounce it, then we're totally messed up right here.
yeah. But he's great, and he's very fast, like, and very imaginative, and we kind of work together on that, like providing images and concept, but then working together making it. So we didn't want to do like a lyric video or a visualizer, because I think that lyric videos are like a little bit not 100% sure I like them, although like I think that most of the times lyric videos are not particularly nice, because like death metal lyrics are not particularly interesting, like and that's my opinion. Like, you know, when it comes to talking about devil or zombies or stuff, like it's something that
You don't like the gory lyrics and stuff.
It's not particularly interesting to me to read. Like, you know, it's something that, you know, I was into that when I was like a little bit younger, I think.
Right.
But again, maybe because now I'm a little bit older and I made peace with like my kind of punk hardcore upbringings.
Or also like just desensitized at this point because so many bands have done it.
Yeah, and I wonder, like, you know, now, you know, I kind of understand bands like Cannibal Corpse, you know, they have, but because that's a brand, right? Like, you know, they're not a band, they're a brand now, like, you know, because they've done like, you know, fucking 17 albums, and you get to expect something from them, and so they fulfill that, you know, and I understand that, but, you know, for a new band or like for, you know, lesser known band to, like, you know, I don't know, I feel that there isn't really much to say. But that's again, it's just like, you know, I got nothing against like people liking that kind of thing. I like horror films. I like the, you know, the horror imagery kind of thing. It just wasn't something that I wanted to use for, you know, for my own creative outlet.
So you don't play any shows as Feed Them Death, right?
No, I tried actually.
Oh yeah, just as a one
yeah.
man doing it, or like a full band?
No, I tried with full band before lockdown. So we, yeah, I was in chat. I rehearsed a few times with a guy, like a fantastic drummer. He kind of plays in a bunch of bands because he's really, really good. Like, you know, he even played with, you know, Extreme Noise Terror, like at some point. He's really good. And a guitar player, like a great friend of mine, really, really good. A great guy, but you know, then lockdown happened, and things with the label got like a little bit more intense anyway, and I feel like, you know, we kind of lost that thing. So I haven't completely abandoned the idea of doing lives,
but as of right now, nothing's in the works.
Yeah, and I don't know. And also, it doesn't really seem to be like, you know, much going on. I think that venues are still tentatively looking to open and do like small shows around here, but you know, I think that it's gonna be like it's gonna take a little bit longer. I'm not 100% sure that, you know, with my commitment with other things, has, you know, they intensified in the past year, in the past year and a half. So I feel that maybe, you know, it's not really something I would like. You know, I didn't want to do like 300 shows a year to start with, right? I just wanted to, like, you know, try to have like, you know, 10 shows a year, but like, you know, pick the right ones to promote the music. But even then, that now seems like a little bit far-fetched, to be honest. So I'll see.
Okay. So we have a random question here we ask every band. How do you dress your hot dogs? What do you put on your hot dogs?
I'm vegan. No, but vegan hot dogs, mustard.
Okay.
Yeah,
I have a lot of people that come on here and eat vegan hot dogs. Like, I didn't know that was a huge thing in the vegan community. I guess it makes sense for people transitioning from meat to that. But
yeah,
still
but you know, but even like, you know, I've been vegan for a number of years, but it doesn't really, like, you know, even after I even past transitioning period, I think that, you know, sometimes you still wanna, you know, you didn't stop because you didn't like the taste, right? So it was for other reasons. So, like, you know, the taste being something that you know, sometimes you might miss, or you just want to, like, you know, diversify your diet. So, like, and as a treat, sometimes, like, you know, the replacements are good.
As a treat, okay. I see.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call hot dogs a treat necessarily, but okay. So let's talk about the Italian scene for a second, because we mentioned a couple bands on here. I don't know a lot of the stuff that's happening over there, and I've talked to some other bands from Italy, and I still don't know like a lot that happens over in the scene. It seems like y'all are kind of in a bubble. Do you feel that way, or do you feel like you're attached to the rest of the world?
Well, that's a very interesting point. Also, us to, like, you know, maybe the wrong person. No, I still have connection to the Italian scene, although I've been living in London for 15 years now. So, and and strangely enough, London doesn't really have a scene, like, you know, or maybe it's like a global issue nowadays that the scene is not as cohesive as it was. Like, you know, I come again, my reference point was like the scene of the mid to late 90s, and it was like a completely different scene, like, you know. And I think that again, it was before the digitalization of everything, so again, for the fact that it was like a huge barrier to entry in terms of recording stuff, there weren't many bands like getting to a point of making an album. And so like I think that the scene was kind of growing with those few bands, right? So like, you know, my band was very lucky because we were like one of the 2-3 bands in Italy like actually making it to record an album and having it distributed worldwide, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole Italian scene, you know, we were like kind of there. I don't know. We were so part of that scene, and everyone was like, you know, they were having our back, right? Like, you know, they were just very pumped about like us actually getting a deal and stuff. Nowadays, it's like a little bit. I see what you mean, but I think it's not only Italy. Perhaps it's like I think that every scene is a bit of a bubble nowadays. Like, you know, because I think that
well, even like the internet age, like there's still all these other, like you named a bunch of projects, and I never heard of any of them before.
Yeah. I mean, you see, like, you know, because it's so accessible now to make music, and so like, you know, and there's like it's like a weird thing nowadays because like people are all very serious about making music. There's a lot more people playing music,
Mm-hmm.
and in the market that actually sells like a lot less records, and so it's like, I don't know, it feels like everyone is doing something and nobody's listening.
Right, everybody's competing for everybody else's attention.
Yeah, so it feels like, you know, the scene is not as cohesive. Like, and then of course there are like, you know, there are different like type of musics. Like I know that, for example, like the crusty grind scene, especially here in the UK, is very cohesive instead. So it depends. Like, you know, it depends on the kind of education of the scene. Like, you know, when it comes to DIY, usually like it tends to be like a little bit more cohesive. When it, you know, and maybe like the kind of extreme death metal, black metal kind of thing, it's a little bit more elitist.
Okay.
Maybe.
I see that. So what was the last thing you listened to?
Right. So the last comfortable things I listened to, so no surprises there. That was Brutal Truth when I came back home, and always a treat for me to listen to them. Absolutely fantastic. But yeah, I think that the last thing I listened, like, you know, that it's not label related or like comfort zone related. It was yesterday. I've been listening, and I listened to a few times actually. It's like a noise project, like a Danish noise project called Mouthwound. It's a girl, like, you know, she's just fucking fantastic. Like, you know, really noise, but I don't know. It's very. It feels like a spooky soundtrack. So, and you know, she's vastly unknown. I think that, you know, like us normal people, doesn't have like a, you know, huge following or anything. So that's a good shout out. Like, you know, if anyone is interested in spooky, crazy kind of noise things, like, you know, she's fantastic.
Yeah, go check out Mouth Wound. Is that what you said it was?
Yeah, Mouthwound. Yeah.
Okay. What about your album of the year, either for last year or up to this point this year?
Yeah. Okay, so I you know, I found myself like thinking about the album of the year like most of last year, and I think, okay, well, I need to give credit to Napalm Death. I think, to be honest, like I think the Napalm Death album last year was like the album of the year for me, and I know it's not like, you know, an underground band by any means. But, you know, a band that's been around for like almost 40 years, and they have like, you know, I don't know, I think it's like 17 or 18 albums, and they still go so fucking strong. And they also have like, you know, the courage to experiment so much. I think that the last album was very experimental for them. So there were like, you know, tracks that were again like almost drony, and like, you know, they came out with a single that was like very Killing Joke-ish thing. So it's not very grind kind of thing. So and I think that I really appreciated the fact that, you know, they were brave enough to put that one forward as a single. So they did 3 different singles. Like one was very grindy and what people would expect. Then as soon as they came out with like something was like a little bit more atonal or something like a little bit more kind of noise rock kind of thing, people started saying, "Oh my god, like the sellout, whatever." Like and actually, I think that that's like the strongest fucking track of the album. It's just fantastic, like very simple 4/4s, like, and it's just like a fucking treat. So
People
I
get
think that
kind of scared whenever their like favorite band starts to experiment a little bit and get a little bit more
yeah.
poppy.
Yeah, but again, it's weird because like I really appreciate the fact for them being like who they are. They're kind of like fucking legends in extreme music. But they still like very experimental, and actually even more so in the past few releases. So I find that the middle period, like they were kind of going through like a weird death metal kind of vibe. Um, and they didn't really peak. They really didn't do like much. But over the past like maybe 10 years or something, they've been dishing out fucking fantastic albums. And this last one, because it's so weird and from a band that's been around for 40 years, like I think that that's credit to them, like seriously, because
Right.
I feel that they're one of the bands that usually like they're so influential that they press the reset button, and whatever they do, like people, they might not like it, but 2 years down the line they're all gonna like follow suit. And I think that for having that kind of responsibility within the genre, within the type of music, they're fantastic because they don't give a fuck. and
Okay.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and I really appreciate that.
You are involved in a project that's going to be hopefully getting some stuff up soon. Continuum of Zool.
Yeah,
You want to tell us a little bit
yeah,
about that?
yeah, that's interesting. That's well, it's not a super group. That sounds a bit ballsy, but it's a group. It's a project with people coming from different established bands, kind of thing. So there will be the drummer from Hideous Divinity and Nero Di Marte. So the Hideous Divinity is on Century Media, so it's like it's kind of a big shop.
Mm-hmm.
Guitar player comes from at Notion, which also they had an
Oh,
album out on
I was gonna say
Avant-Garde.
they just released something pretty recently.
Yeah, and it was like I usually tend to dislike albums that are artificially, that I feel they're artificially hyped, but that album was fucking phenomenal, and it got like rightfully hyped because it was like really really like fantastic album.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and so it's people coming from different like experiences, different type of music, like coming from either kind of experimental noise, disco, death, grindcore, and brutal death kind of thing. And it's interesting. So we've just finished recording actually.
Oh,
So
okay.
hence. So yeah, and so at the moment we're just doing the mixing and all that. But I think that we have it on schedule for release in September.
Okay. It's gonna be like dissonant death metal type of stuff, or what are we talking about?
It's gonna be kind of hate eternal, kind of like morbid angelish,
Okay.
like yeah, very fast, brutal. But when I say morbid angel, it's like kind of like morbid angel, fast morbid angel, kind of like almost fatal to the flesh kind of thing, and like or like hate eternal, so big sounds and like super fast and
Okay.
and very very chunky, very like and also like a bit spooky. So I don't know, I think that that, yeah, if I say like something between hate eternal, like kind of hate eternal, morbid angel kind of thing, it's I put you on the right path to visualize it.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah,
Definitely looking forward to stuff like that from that project. So you've got vinyl, CDs, and shirts available at your Bandcamp. Gonna try
yeah.
to get a picture of of one of your shirts up here. There we go. Um, so yeah, I can't show the vinyl and stuff again, but we got this shirt that we're showing up here. Um,
Yeah.
when do you expect this stuff to come in?
Sorry?
When do you expect this stuff to ship?
Oh,
You said you're
well,
still waiting on it, right?
yeah, there have been delays with the vinyl, unfortunately. So we knew that usually production time, right? I'm gonna give this secret out. It's usually around like, for vinyl production, it's usually 12 weeks or something. Now,
Mm-hmm.
we allowed 4 months for it. So we actually placed the order back end of January kind of thing, thinking for release in May. And it was like, plenty of time, surely, like, right? nothing. Like and
Yeah,
the week
yeah, it's not
after,
even good enough right now. Yeah.
no. So I had to chase the manufacturing, the pressing plant, like thousands of times, and then he told me, oh, actually, it's gonna ship like on 13th of June. Like, so what do you mean, like Anyway,
Right.
so the album released on 7th of May. So CDs are there, and we started shipping all the pre-orders and stuff. T-shirts, we only have 4 left, 3, I don't know, depends. Yeah, but we low on sizes and stuff, and I don't think we will reprint them. Yeah, vinyl, we're just waiting, and I know I've already reached out personally to all the people pre-order, which was like a bit of a big job, but glad I did it, like making sure that I think that there's like a kind of like a wide understanding that nowadays this kind of things happen. I think that everyone is a lot of labels have faced delays with due to COVID and stuff, like production pressing plants have been like a little bit understaffed and stuff. So I think that luckily, like there's a consensus around that it's normal nowadays to wait for vinyl. It still pisses me off.
Yeah, I just like grown to accustomed to having to wait for like months and stuff after release date to get the vinyl. I actually put vinyl out for my last release, and it was supposed to be like a 3-week turn or a 3-month turn at first, and ended up being almost 6 months. So actually, a little over 6 months actually. And now I'm trying to get vinyl ready for my next album, and I'm being told by some plants that they're booking for spring of next year. So like in March. Like that's insane, dude. So yeah, well, like it's just getting
well, but at least they're being honest. Like honestly, if they told me like there are chances that this is gonna take 6 months, I would have just pushed my release date.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It's not a biggie. Like tell me when it's ready. I'm gonna like make sure it's available. Like but now I just feel like I dropped part of it, and then the rest is still like pending in cyberspace, and that kind of like makes things complicated also on a promotional aspect, right? Because you have like an album out but without the product,
right?
So it feels, it just doesn't feel right. So anyway, what to do?
That's about all I had to talk. Oh, is there a U.S. distributor as well, or is it just through you guys?
Yeah, I think there. Let me think. Yes, I think that there is. And is Hypnotic, well, US is like Canada, is Hypnotic Dirge.
Okay, cool. So anybody wants like a physical copy of your album, they should and they're in the US or Canada, they should go through Hypnotic Dirge then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great label, like check what they've got. Like they're really amazing. There's like, super, synergy with us in the sense. I mean, they've been around for a lot, like, they are our older brothers. Like, they've been around for 10 years and they've been releasing consistently fucking killer albums and like also very experimental stuff. So we are the newcomers, and we're very like chuffed to be able to collaborate with them. But yeah, they have like a bunch of our releases. And that being said, I'm not 100% sure whether they got them yet because we sent the order a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
So all going well, they should have gotten. But
alrighty. Well, that's about all I had to talk about. Unless you had something else you wanted to bring up.
Okay. No, I mean, no, thanks very much. It was like extremely pleasant to have, chat with you. And I'm like extremely like, grateful for, again, for having this conversation with you. It was very, very nice.
Absolutely. So if you're looking for a strange, brutal journey, you should check out Negative, the new album from Feed Them Death, which dropped back in March through Brucia Records. You're on Facebook, Instagram, and Bandcamp. Your label's on those as well as YouTube. You're also on all the streaming platforms. Are there any other social plugs that we're missing?
No.
Okay.
You did a great job. Yeah.
Drop my channel, follow so you always know when I go live. You can also sub to get access to exclusive emotes and access to the interviews before they hit YouTube and streaming services. You can also sub for free by attaching Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. YouTube folks, if you like the video, please drop a like, tickle the notification bell. Don't forget to subscribe. It's a great way to support me for free. Check out my music, The Sound That Ends Creation, at thesoundthatindscreation.bandcamp.com. My next guest is Sweden-based screamo band Suffocate for Fuck's Sake. Join us this Sunday at the 30th at 12 p.m. Central, right here at twitch.tv/thesoundthatindscreation for the live cast. Thank you for being here. I hope you had a lot of fun.
Thank you.
And thank you all for watching and listening.